Hi, Sacred Travel friends. I am so glad you are back. And to those of you who are new here, welcome, welcome. I am Julia, a Sacred Site Oracle and your Sacred Travel Guide. And today I am welcoming a fun and powerful guest, Clara Francken. And this conversation takes another approach to conscious travel. And Clara is a Belgian living in Germany. She calls herself a sustainable traveler, and she does most, if not all, her travels by train. And I met Clara last year when we were having a conversation on her podcast, the 𝘁𝗵𝗶 Show. So we'll link the show and you can also hop over and listen in. Clara, welcome. I am so thrilled to make this a two-way hosting situation. So welcome to the Sacred Travel Podcast.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. You know, we both consider our shows to be about conscious travel, but through, I want to say, like different lenses. So please tell us about your unique perspective and how you came to approach travel in a slow, sustainable way that you do.
Yes. Yeah, we do see it a bit differently, but it's also somehow a bit connected in certain ways. And I was really happy to learn about your way of traveling consciously in my podcast. So I'm glad to contribute today. It's a good question. What do I see as sustainable travel? I feel like for me, it's the ethics within my core, I guess, who make me want to travel in a sustainable way. So I choose to travel by train for the last couple of years, always more and more. That doesn't mean that I never traveled by plane before. I've got a past where I traveled a lot by plane, but today I chose to really stop that. It started, I would say, kind of 7 years ago when I moved to Germany for my exchange. And then I took the plane back to Belgium. And I arrived back in my home country and realized that what I just did, somehow I just felt off because I felt like I'm vegetarian. I go to events like Friday for Future, but then I would I would fly to a neighbor country, and that just felt not aligned with my values. And I just thought it's the cheapest way of traveling, but I never really looked into other solutions. And that's when I started doing research. It really came from within. It was like, it's not a choice. It's something that just has to happen. And it just started shifting in my mind. I started looking for other solutions and I started traveling by train from that moment on. I've never taken a flight to a neighbor country ever since.
What is the magic of traveling by train, and what has it taught you about people, conversations, and connections?
I think the magic of traveling by train is that you're not in a hurry and that most people are more relaxed. I mean, again, if I can compare it to other modes of transport, especially the ones most of us are used to in many countries, is flying. And flying can come with a lot of stress. And I feel like if we let go of that and if we travel by train, we're slower. And this way of slow travel just gives us so much because I can enjoy the scenery. I don't have a deadline the next minute after I arrived. So I am allowing myself to have some delay. I can have great conversations with people on the train. I surely met a lot of interesting people while traveling. I don't know, I think I enjoy myself just way more. And I arrive at my destination in a relaxed state of mind rather than arriving after being teleported by a plane almost.
And I love your perspective about the permission with the delay, because I think now, I mean, I live in Switzerland, so luckily the trains here are quite on time, mostly. Not all the time, but mostly. I know that this is not the case for Germany and probably a lot of other places as well. So I really love, that you approach that already with the perspective of like, there will be delays. So I'm not even going to complain about it. I'll just like tie that into the entire flow, which makes it very easeful and graceful, I find.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important because you don't want to set up yourself for disappointment. Obviously, the first time, if you're a first time traveler and you think, oh, we're in Germany, this country is so punctual, and everybody, if you have a meeting and you arrive like 15 minutes late, the meeting is cancelled. And there's so many things in Germany that are so punctual. But then we have the train system, which doesn't come or fit that box. But instead of frustrating myself around that topic, I just embrace it because I cannot change it anyway. I'm not in a hurry. And I kind of see the pro in it because I can get a discount if I'm delayed for more than 1 hour. I will get a discount on my price, right? It's not called a discount, it's called a refund. But I just make it for myself. I call it a discount just because I don't want to make it sound, I just want to make it sound more fun in my head. And it works.
Yeah, that's a beautiful trick. How has
Yeah.
your train travels in other countries taught you about maybe reframing your own perspective of life?
I guess it just shows me that there's many different reasons why one would travel by train. That my reason to travel by train is not your reason to travel by train. It can be convenience, but even in countries like south of Italy, it can be by choice, because I spoke to people who were scared that if they would travel by car, their car would get stolen or broken by some mafia people. So in some regions, it's also security. And then if I look at other countries like South America, I didn't travel there by train because it was told to me that it's not safe. So it's also a luxury in some countries to be able to travel by public transport. I post so much about traveling by train that I get sometimes comments from other people, and even have really interesting conversation with friends and people I meet on the train who have so different perspectives. And I think that is the most interesting part of it all. It's not only my little bubble and my reason of being sustainable traveler before being a train traveler. For many other people, it's a different reason.
Give us a little bit of an insight of the kaleidoscope of reasons that you have experienced, not just through your own lensing, but also through the conversations that you have on your podcast.
I guess the biggest reason for me, first of all, is that the carbon footprint of traveling by train is just way lower compared to flying and even to taking the car. So the main idea is that the train, it can take up a lot of passengers, and that just lowers your carbon footprint. So that's the main one for me. And for many people that I've interviewed as well, this is a big one. Next to that, there's obviously the slower aspects of it. People are just intrigued in traveling slower, in taking train travel as a part of their travel rather than as a means of transport. And I think that's a big shift in our mind as well. We don't need to get to our destination, which is kind of what I was talking about with the teleportation to your destination by plane, right? You see the surrounding change. I've traveled to a lot of countries which I couldn't arrive to within 1 day, within 2 days. And just to see the landscape change, or at a certain point I need to take a ship because there's no train. It just shows you what is possible, and it kind of it feels like going back in time a little bit, because people are like, yeah, but we can get there so much quicker. Why would you do this to yourself? But it's just so magical to travel slower and to enjoy the means of transport as a way of traveling as well. Yeah, and the third thing, I guess, is also the luxury that we have in Europe to travel safely by train. There's such a good infrastructure. I know there have been recently in Spain, for example, some disasters with traveling by train. The Greek also had a big train accident, which caused them to be skeptical of train travel. But there's many examples where train travel was really a good solution. And yeah, there's just so many beautiful ways of being able to get around Europe by train. And I see in your background, for those who are watching this podcast, there's a steam train, and we have steam trains, but obviously we also have the normal, regular trains of today. And I feel like looking at this train, already we even see that even the train travel evolves, right? We used to have steam trains with coal, with water heating up, and then the steam coming out. And then today we have trains who are almost fully run on electricity. So we have a big shift as well, and making the trains even more sustainable and also more practical, depending on the region where it's traveling to. So, yeah.
Thank you. What else is part of that slow travel? Because you're completely right. I mean, we can, and I love how you framed it with, the travel to the destination, or even like to going back home as part of the journey. And that's also how I see it. But what else for you is how do you go about your slow travel then when you are in a country?
What I do when I travel to countries, I mostly am a person that travels to a country where I know someone. So that's first of all. I'm not a person that travels to just any country and goes on a typical city trip. I would look, where do I have some friends where I can crash on their couch, and they would then be able to show me around a little bit. So that doesn't mean that every city I'm going to or every place I'm going to, I know people, but I try to do that because there's already so many great connections. And I feel like it just, to come to your question of slow traveling, it part of slow traveling is also experiencing the city, the nature, the surrounding. And if you're experiencing it with your own eyes at first, it's beautiful because you can just, yeah, have your own impression. But I feel like it's so much more meaningful if you can experience it with someone, and not only me with my partner traveling to a foreign place, but me with my friend who lives there, who can show me around. So I'm also someone who would make a friend quickly if I don't have a friend. I would try to meet someone, a local. And I'm not meaning a guide. Obviously, you can always pay for a guide as well. And that can be very meaningful as well if you don't have the solution to get a friend or to meet a friend over there. But I just feel like, for me, slow travel, a big part of it is also connecting with people and having your friend as a guide on the location. And then I'm traveling by train alone all the time. So it's giving me a lot of like solo time while traveling, to have the opportunity to meet new people on the train, for example, or in train stations, have meaningful conversations, sometimes in cafes if you're waiting around for your next train to come. And then to arrive to your destination and to have your friend that you didn't see in 2 years. They're not close friends, but close enough to want to host you for a night or two.
If you feel the call to travel with purpose, the interest lists for my upcoming Sacred Journeys 2026 are officially open, and I would love to welcome you into the field. In May, the south of France and Mary Magdalene landscapes are waiting for you. Roseline frequencies and soft initiations through beauty, devotion, and light. In October, journey with me to Crete, ancient temples, the bees of the goddess, and the land that remembers your original rhythm and the pulse of creation. And in November, December, a temple journey through Egypt is waiting. Nile transmission and deep remembrance with ancient body technologies of the land. If your body just leaned in, if your heart skipped a beat, or if one of these lands has been whispering your name, then this is your sign. Join the interest links via the links below and receive early access, behind-the-scenes transmissions, and first invitations when all dates, itineraries, and portals open. And if this podcast nourishes you, subscribe and share it with a fellow sacred traveler, and stay close to the journeys that are unfolding.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I keep holding a vision in many different ways of what I call a network of light. And so when you describe that, it's a little bit how I see that, like you have your touch points all around the globe, like these nodes, and then they come together. And when you meet, there's that illumination spark that happens.
Totally. Yes. Yes. It's a beautiful way of describing it. Yeah.
And that also ties in the connection part that you said, I want to touch on that you speak 5 languages, which is in itself pretty cool and probably gives a lot of touch points for connecting with people. But what I would love to know, from, let's say, like a frequency perspective, how does it feel like in your body to express yourself in these different languages? And you can name them, like being in a culture, and what does that do to you? How does Clara change when you switch?
It's a beautiful thing to think of because there's a saying in Turkish, one of the languages I speak is Turkish, is that every language you speak is like a new soul, like a new person being born, a new character. So first of all, yes, my mother tongue is French and kind of Dutch as well, because I'm speaking French at home. I'm born in the Dutch part of Belgium, so Dutch speaking. Flemish is the same language. So we have two languages over there. Then we have German. I've been living in Germany for a while now, so that's how I learned German. Then we have Turkish, which I already mentioned. I lived in Turkey for 1 year, which is about 10 years ago by now. And then we have English, which is the
Obviously.
third language we learn at school. So at school, because in Belgium, we also have a very small German-speaking part. Belgium is quite a complex country. For those who don't know, it's a very small country, but so rich of language. We did learn a little bit of German at school as well, but it was so low that I just felt like I couldn't speak German because it was 1 hour a week and it was grammar only. And you don't learn the language like that. I think the important is to go to the country, to go outside of your little square, your little home, and to experience it. And so to go back to your question, I feel like learning languages has only opened doors for me. I've met people that I could not have spoken to if I weren't to know their language. And I cannot always rely on English and be like, okay, so I'm excluding myself from so many conversations and meaningful friendships just because I don't speak their language. Because there's so many great people out there in the world, and you don't know, you cannot get to know them if you don't know their language. And I'm a person that really loves to adapt. So when I'm in Germany, I find it totally normal to, as soon as possible, learn German. And the same was when I lived in Turkey. I was living with a host family. It was very hard on me. Turkish was very different from any language I knew. But I learned it pretty quickly, I would say, considering that in the beginning I didn't know anything. So the 3 first months were super hard and a lot of headaches. Same when I came to Germany for the first time, but I already spoke Dutch, so German was a bit easier for me. And I guess it just opened up so many doors. And it made it possible to have these meaningful friendships that I now have, to be able to even, like, if there would be something wrong, something happening. I'm just giving an example that's not necessarily a reality, but if I were to go down the street today and there's something going on in the train or in the tram, or I don't know, on the street, some old lady falling down, like, I would not be able to help them or to understand like what they would be saying if I weren't to speak their language. So I don't know. I feel like speaking the language of the country you're visiting or you are living in, for me, is just so important. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna learn the language if I'm living somewhere for more than a month.
Yeah, I agree. That's beautiful. Earlier you touched on alignment, and I think that's a very important one. Like you said something that it didn't feel aligned anymore to travel by plane, and that was part of like why you chose also to at least for the neighboring countries search for different solutions. If you elaborate on that a little bit, what would you say that is your purpose, and how is Travel Devil, your show, contributing to fulfilling that purpose?
Wow.
It's a big
I
question.
guess yeah, it is a big one. I guess my purpose, and it's funny you're asking this because yesterday I was just having a conversation about this. I was asking myself, why is sustainability so important to me? And I was trying to find an answer. I was like, yeah, maybe because of animals, because I became vegetarian when I was 10 years old, because I loved horses. And then I just decided I cannot eat any animal because horses are cute, so other animals are cute as well. And that kind of continued in a way that I want to do something good for the animals. So I want to do something good for the planet and feel happy with the choices that I'm making. But I don't know if that's the exact reason. It's it's more like such a core value of mine that I, even when thinking about it so actively yesterday, I couldn't find like what is the reason for me to want to travel sustainably? What is the reason for me to think sustainability is the right choice? I feel like probably it's more of my understanding of justice and how the world should look like and how people are with travel as well contributing to make the world less pretty in a way. Like there's so many people traveling and they're leaving down trash. I mean, I have got very vivid memories of me as a kid. I was so angry if somebody would put a cigarette on the ground. Like I would be that girl that if you would, first of all, if you would smoke, I would be like waving my hand around because I was just, I don't know, it was something within me. It's a fire within me, I guess, that just distanced myself from all of the things that I understood at the time and I understand today. I'm sure there's more I can learn. And maybe at some point I'm gonna be like, okay, I wanna be vegan now because I don't feel like I could eat cheese anymore because of the industry behind that. I'm not at that point at the moment, but I I just feel like for everything that I understood that is important for my values and for my feeling and for what I understood to be wrong in this world, I just wanted to contribute to do it better. And I'm not saying better, it's like my version of better, right? So that doesn't mean it's your version of better, but I just wanted to contribute to, I guess, a better world and have a meaningful impact and not leave the place you're visiting worse than when you arrived, right? So if you're going to the beach and there's a piece of trash, you can pick it up and you don't need to leave extra trash with you. Most of the time, the fun thing about picking up some things, and I don't do this like super frequently either, but if you start looking for it, you will always find a bag, so you don't even need to bring your own bag. There's always somebody who left a bag of chips. You can use this to fill up with the other trash you're finding. So I feel like there's just so many ways to create a small impact, and I don't feel strongly like I need to create a big impact, because I know that the companies needs to create a big one. But I want to be a small contribution to it. That's also why I started my podcast, because I feel like there's so many ways of traveling. Why should we limit ourselves to travel by plane to city trips? There's so much more out there. And if you don't know about it, then I cannot blame you. I mean, I was there as myself. But when you know all of these options and you can see like, oh, I can actually take my bicycle. I can actually travel by train and it seems like a fun adventure. It's not a boring thing to do. There's so much possibilities out there. So I just think it's worth talking about and it's worth hearing different stories from different people with different perspectives. So that's what I'm trying to contribute to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're doing that greatly. Absolutely. There's
Thank you.
also the people that you have on your show. I feel there's a lot, like very meaningful input that's being generated and shared as well. And one thing that I also do want to touch on, because I found it an interesting conversation, when I was on your show, and Like we started to talk a little bit about grid work, and then also we're trying to find the ground of like, okay, how what you're doing is actually also a form of grid work, because I truly believe that you are a steward of the earth, you are a steward of Gaia. Otherwise, like you have that assignment and that connection with her and from her. So I would love to hear from you if there was anything since our conversation that maybe has sparked in you, or how you see that a little bit differently now.
It was interesting because for me, our conversation was interesting in a way that I didn't know so much about grid work. I even asked you, what is grid work? That was one of my questions. And it was not only for my podcast listeners, it was also for me, because I'm very intrigued in the topic. It's very interesting and I'm learning from you, but I didn't know it before. So it was interesting to also, like you're asking me now, to reflect on it and just to have some time go over it and to be like, okay, at the moment when we were talking, I felt like I'm not sure, but if I'm doing anything within that conscious scene. But when I look at it now from perspective, and even now with you introducing the question to me, yes, there's more overlap than I would have thought. And still, I'm not actively practicing this consciousness. So I'm not sure if I can give you a great example, but I would see it more aligned with my values and the way I see the world now than before our conversation. I also understood that it's not only traveling to, because we talked a bit about that, and I think it's also because some of your guests, or maybe it's the episodes I had listened to, that we're going deeper into maybe also ancient history and back in like the way past, and I don't go there in my mind, and I never went to Egypt and I never experienced those things. But that doesn't mean that I don't travel meaningfully or consciously. And that is something that I kind of understood from our conversation, which was pretty beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess it's like what I'm interested to hear is not my lensing or anybody other's lensing, but like really your lensing, because I do feel that, you know, with the example that you just brought, like picking up trash, or maybe there is any other practices that you have and want to share with us that are exactly that, that are grid work and conscious communication, healing with the earth.
You know what it is? I feel like the more you learn, the more you see there's different ways of doing something. I had conversations where I learned a lot about something, and then I had another conversation with someone who was saying something, like talking about the same subject and having like a totally different opinion, and both of them would really think like, okay, I'm traveling consciously, I'm traveling sustainably. And so there's many different ways of doing that. And I think first and foremost, you need to find your truths and listen to multiple different sources, and then make up your own mind, like what is good. To give you an example, I had talked to Pranitha, who is a girl that I interviewed. It's already a little over a year ago, about traveling and about having an impact on the planet basically when traveling. About We talked about like why she thinks it's not okay to feed birds, why it's not okay to take shelves with us when we're traveling to a beach, why we should leave the stones at the beaches as well, or when we're traveling through the mountains, we should leave everything there. And but I've heard from other conversations that it can be a meaningful souvenir to take that with you from an experience, and then to have it close to your heart and to remember it in a different way than if you would buy something made out of plastic, because that might end up in trash and also contributes negatively towards the planet. So where the one conversation I found really interesting with Pranita now, to give this example, is yes, but the planet needs this to stay there. It For the ecological reasons of like, if everybody would take away the most beautiful shell, then at the end, all of these beautiful shells, they are also part of the circular system, and they're gone because everybody starts collecting the same beautiful ones. What is beautiful? That's the thing that we currently chose, that this one shell is now the beautiful one. So everybody wants to have that. So if we post about it, if we start to share this thing, people will not only take it with them from holidays, they will also maybe sell it online, and it becomes a whole different system than what we are meant or what we want to do. So, and then in contrast to you just want to have a meaningful gift instead of buying something. So it's two different truths, right? It's like, why would you say that one is fully correct and the other one is not? Maybe there's the ecological aspect, if you really look at the footprint of it, yes. But there's also the other sides of it.
And it's really beautiful what you say, because it actually does touch on a lot of, also spiritual concepts with like coexisting, contradicting truths, and being able to hold the field of both and bring, maybe also even like bring compassion depending on how far these truths are apart. And then what you said that I find is so important, like find your own truth and align with what feels good to you. Because if you can't be true to yourself, I guess that's the worst betrayal that we can do overall. So, yeah.
Yeah. May I give you another example of two
Absolutely,
different truths?
please.
Because last year I learned something really interesting, and I still haven't made up my mind like 100%. But I was in Portugal, in the south of Portugal, and it was on a camp with some other creators, and we looked for different ways of sustainable travel as well. It was with a company called 𝘆𝗵𝘁, if you're interested. And basically, what we did is we went to different locations and we looked at their ways of traveling. So we went to see dolphins one day, which was really, really fun. There was a lot of dolphin research. But we also went to see forests. And that was the part that I want to talk about, because I learned a lot from that day. Because it just started in the morning where every one of us was like, yeah, we're going to plant some trees. And that's great because it's carbon emission. Wait, how do you call this? There's a word for it, where you would cut down your carbon emission by planting trees, basically.
Like
so
compensation,
even if you would,
basically.
yes, thank you. Yeah, so the compensation. So in English, it's called carbon compensation, or is it carbon footprint, CO2
I'm
compensation?
not sure about the like exact technical term, but I think everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah. Sorry. Sometimes that's the great thing of knowing different languages. Also has a down part. It's like my mind sometimes, like, I cannot find the correct words to speak about some stuff. But yes, so the compensation basically you can have if you are flying or if you're traveling more unsustainably or just have a less sustainable lifestyle because of work. Some people cannot choose this, right? So you might want to compensate your emission. And then one of the solutions to do that is to plant trees. So one thing that we did in the beginning of the day was we all went to this big hill. They explained us that there was a big wildfire a while ago, that everything was taken down. They turned around the ground and they now wanted to plant new trees everywhere. And so we had these little machines, very manual machines, I would say, very basic, to plant the trees in the ground, luckily without plastic, so it was not surrounded with plastic, but we had to then close them up in the earth a little bit. We did that, I think, for 2 or 3 hours. We were like on the top of the mountain in the sun, like helping each other out, making videos about it, because it was a camp where there was like multiple creators there. So everybody wanted to really do their best, have the most positive impact on long term as well, not only doing something there, but also sharing the message. Fast forward to lunchtime, we all talk about it. We're all pretty excited that we learned how to do this, that you don't put the same tree next to each other. You put like three times the same tree, and then you would put like a little plant in the middle so that you can make sure that there's no diseases. There's like multiple things that we learned that day, which was really nice. And then the afternoon, we all jumped in the car together to ride to another forest. And this time it was a private land, and it was a private landowner who was opening his big land to us, basically, to have a look. And so I would call this fast forward 20 years in the future, because 20 years ago on this location, there was also wildfire, and they also did the same thing as we had been doing in the morning. They planted a lot of trees. And what we were seeing there was the reality of what happens 20 years later versus the other side of the same hill, basically, where they didn't touch nature for 20 years, and now there was a real forest growing. So we could see what would happen if we leave nature untouched versus if we take out all of the burned trees, turn around the ground, and put in our new trees, which may or may not be native. And what we realized is that the biodiversity was just way lower. There were less animals living there. Yeah. There was not enough moss in the ground, which is important for biodiversity as well. A lot of the trees were planted at the time, which is maybe something that is different today, but they were planted with a lot of plastic around it, which meant that there was still 20 years later, while we were walking around this forest, so much plastic trash laying around. And plastic doesn't go away. It becomes microplastic. It goes into soil and the ground. There needs to be a lot of more research on that regard. But just looking at it, and we had to walk there and then walk in the other forest. And the other forest, you could almost not walk through because it was such a density and so much more moist, so much more birds. You could hear the birds like chirping way more. And it's not far away. Like this is within 5 to 10 minutes walking from each other. So it's two different realities. And also the diseases spread way more in those forests that are man-made versus the ones where nature recovered. And to round up this little food for thought that I'm giving is, you might think now that you're doing the correct thing, but you cannot look in the future. And I'm not saying that all compensation is wrong, but sometimes we need to let nature do its thing. And on the long term, this might be more beneficial. On the short term, yes, maybe we have the trees quicker, and that could be beneficial. And I still am not sure, like, what is 100%, like, am I against carbon, like, footprint compensation now? I'm not sure, but I definitely learned something from this experience. And that's also what traveling is about, and keeping an open mind and keeping open ears and learning a new language so you can speak with those people. All of that just contributes to you becoming a better version of yourself and understanding what is right and wrong in this world. And having different opinions is just the beauty of it.
That's powerful. And I guess also, the underlying message of that there is an innate intelligence and a balance that the earth claims back without humans interfering.
Yes, definitely.
Have you ever been called to a place that you felt, you really needed to be there without necessarily knowing why?
I feel like I'm drawn back to my hometown a lot. I don't know if that's the same thing. I feel like for some reason, my hometown is just so close to my heart. It's such a pretty little town. It's called Ghent. It's in Belgium. And every time I'm back in Belgium and in my hometown, I feel like home. I don't know. I cannot explain it better. I'm this person, like, I love traveling, and I'm living in Germany for already 5 years. I lived in Turkey for a year, and that doesn't mean that I don't like to be abroad. Just every time I'm going back, it's okay. It's also for my family. It's also for my friends. But it also just, it feels like home. I don't know. it just feels like my place. It's my city, and I used to say this. My partner would be like, "Yeah, okay, that's weird, but I love sitting on the stones of the city
Oh,
next
yeah.
to the water. It's not even a park. There's a lack of nature in the city. And, but I just loved sitting on these maybe even a bit dirty stones on the ground next to the river, and it just so, I don't know, it feels so good to me to be
Yeah.
there and to, I don't know, sit there, have a fry, and enjoy my time, enjoy the sun a little bit, speak with some friends, hear my language, hear some French speaking people in the city. I always love that as well, because there's more and more speaking Dutch. I'm living in a Dutch part, so it's normal, I guess. But yeah, I guess it's just my hometown. It would be the city or the place that I'm most drawn to.
Love
Maybe not
that.
the most intriguing location, but it is the truth.
No, I can feel, I can totally picture you sitting there, and like in my wording, I would say like this is when you come into your frequency field, and that's where a resonance of, the place, the stone, the water, and like the frequency of Clara come into one. So that's beautiful.
Yeah,
What's in your
I
travel
think so
agenda
too.
for 2026?
Oh God. Okay, my biggest plan for this year is, to be honest, I really want to go to Turkey again. I want to go by train, and it's going to be me going to 𝘁𝗶𝗹𝗹. So I haven't figured out how, but I'm working on that, and I'm just putting it out there because I'm sure that I'm gonna go. So 𝘁𝗶𝗹𝗹, for those who don't know, the COP stands for Conference of Parties, which is a sustainable event taking place with a lot of politicians coming together from all over the world. And this was taking place in many different cities around the world already. This year it's taking place in Antalya, in Turkey. And I just felt like I already wanted to travel to Turkey for so long, to go back to my friends, because I haven't seen them in a while. And Turkish economy is so bad. My friends cannot come to visit me. It's impossible. So I really wanted to go visit them, and then waiting for that last year, because I was like, yeah, it's not right yet. It's gonna come. The time is gonna come. And then hearing that the conference of parties that I've been wanting to go to so much is in the city where my host sister currently lives, was like, wow, okay, it's meant to be. I'm going.
It's meant
Like,
to
there's
be.
no question about it. So that's my big plan for this year.
That's your big
It's
one.
going to be in November.
Okay, well, all the best for that. And I'm sure
Yeah,
that
it will be very
you'll find
exciting.
a way to get there.
I'm certain of that as well. It will
If it's
happen. I just know
if
it.
it's meant to be, then yes. So any final words, any final message that you would want to convey with the audience?
I hope that if you are intrigued in learning more about train travel, you might want to go listen to some of my podcast episodes where I share some more tips, because now we talked about why sustainability matters to me, and which different options you have in traveling more consciously, but then making it more sustainable, and especially with me traveling a lot by train. But train travel, and I want to put it out there, in Europe is not as expensive as you think. There's, it needs to be said, because you had to convince me a couple of years ago, and I learned myself from the mistakes that I made, or the projects that I went through. And there's so many tips out there. There's so many information. You can go to my channel, but you can find a lot of information online as well. There's just so many options for you to find a meaningful travel by train. And I promise you that you will have such a beautiful holiday if the next holiday you're planning is going to be by train.
Well, thank you, Clara. It's been such a joy to return the favor of hosting. Thank you for coming and sharing all that, beautiful insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really nice to be able to speak on that.
Please, everyone, hop over to Travel Devil, Clara's show, and give that a listen and a like. And next week, we are celebrating the 100th episode of the Sacred Travel podcast, and I am weaving in listener voices into the field. So if you'd like to be part of that, then send me a 1-minute voice, either in an Instagram DM or email it to me on julia@soulwisdom.ch, answering the prompt, what sacred travel has awakened in you? And as always, stay curious and seek out the extraordinary. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.